This is the Expositor Devotional for December 18th, 2021. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. We learn from this text that there is no such thing as a middle ground between the children of God and the children of the devil. In other words, one cannot be a little of both. One is either or. Abel was a child of God. Cain was a child of the devil. To do righteousness is to act as Abel did. He humbled himself and accepted God's way of righteousness. To commit sin is to act as Cain did. His religious works were evil. Cain was in fact a very religious man, but not a righteous man. His worship would have secured the admiration of modern thought, but the Holy Spirit says here it was evil. He rejected the divine way of righteousness and thus showed that he was out of the evil one. Popular modern preachers teach that both religions are equally good. But God did not think so, for he accepted the one and rejected the other. He also states here, there is a devil, that morally he has children, and that these children may be very religious. Satan actually has two ways of salvation, one by sacraments and the other by ethics. Christ's atonement, possessing infinite moral value, condemns and destroys both these false ways of seeking acceptance with God. Christ is the measure of the believer's acceptance. Therefore, that acceptance is perfect, full, and eternal. In that righteousness, that is the righteousness of Christ, which was gained at the cross and is given freely to believing man, no one can find a flaw. It neither needs ecclesiastical ceremonies nor human merits to add to its perfection. The word slew in the Greek is sphazo, which means to butcher by cutting the throat. The inspired writer goes out of his way to use a symbolized word to describe the murder of Abel by Cain. Cain slit his brother's throat. God said to Cain, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries unto me from the ground." Genesis 4 and verse 10. The method Cain used to kill his brother was one in which much blood would be shed. The cutting of the jugular vein would fit that description. As is overly obvious, Cain was evil, which played out to what he did to his brother. In view of all of this, John said that we are not to marvel if the world hate you. John's readers were astounded at the fact that people of the world should hate them because they were children of God. The hatred of the world toward the child of God is, however, a fact. This will not change. And yet at the same time, we must not do things that would give the world a legitimate reason to think ill of us. No matter what the world thinks, our business is to commend Jesus to it and to win it to the Lord. Most of the hostility, however, will not come from the world, but rather from professing religion. I speak of that which calls itself the church. Cain was very religious. He built an altar and offered sacrifice. However, it was not the type of sacrifice that God would accept, so Cain was rejected by the Lord. In this context, he murdered his brother. Such hostility from the religious counterpart began with Cain and has continued ever since. As proved by the saga of Cain and Abel, the greatest animosity is tendered by the church, and the reason is the cross. The reason always is the cross. The Expositor's Word for Every Day is a publication of Jimmy Swaggart Ministries, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The Expositor Devotional is an outreach of Straight and Narrow Ministries.